Autopilot removes the stress from your commute.
Will self-driving cars become a reality anytime soon? I'm David Curley. This is Full Throttle. It has been a difficult few months for those working on autonomous vehicles. In December, Tesla agreed to recall just about every car it has made for a self-driving software update. Cruise, GM's autonomous vehicle company, has shuttered many of its vehicles, or as it says, proactively paused driverless operations across all of our fleets. That comes after a pedestrian was pinned under one of Cruise's vehicles in an accident. Will the promise of fewer traffic deaths ever be realized when it comes to autonomous vehicles? And if so, when? I talked with one of the country's top safety experts. Robert Sumwalt is the former chairman of the National Transportation Safety Board and is currently working at Embry-Riddle at the Boeing Safety Center, an aviation and aeronautics university in Florida. Robert, thank you for joining us. And I want to talk about autonomy in cars, which, we've been talking about robo-taxis and all this coming, and it's still in development. You were an airline pilot. You dealt with autonomy because there's a lot of autonomy in aircraft. Is autonomy good or bad for safety?
Well, it's both. It can very much enhance safety, but if we're not monitoring it properly, if we're not using it properly, it can very much have a downside.
Let's talk about it a little bit when it comes to automobiles. Cruise, part of GM, funded by GM, had an accident, had some problems with reporting the accident. They basically lost their license. They haven't been shuttered, but certainly slowed significantly. There have been issues with Tesla and its full self-driving and autopilot systems, which have not done everything that the company said they would do. There seems to have been a race, and I've written about this in the past, that autonomy can save lives. We're not there yet when it comes to vehicles on the road, correct?
We're not there. And you mentioned the name autopilot that Tesla uses, and I vastly disagree with calling it autopilot. It is not an autopilot system. It is a driver assistance system, and it's never intended to be used as an autonomous self-driving system, which Tesla seems to hold out as that's what it is, but it is not. It is only level 2 automation. Level 4, of course, level 5 is full autonomy, but they're a long way from being fully autonomous.
But do you think it's the right direction, that autonomy in vehicles on the road will save lives in the long run?
Oh, I think definitely in the long run, but we're a long way from being there.
And that kind of gets to the promises of autonomy, right? And I think the race to get to autonomous vehicles. And when you were head of NTSB, you saw problems along this road, right?
We've all seen problems with the introduction or the misuse of automation in automobiles. We've seen cases where people would just turn it on and forget it. We saw a case where a guy was playing a video game and he lost his life in a Tesla crash because you just can't turn it loose. It's designed to be a driver assistance system, but it's also with the caveat that the driver has to maintain his or her eyes on the road and his or her mind on the road and his or her hands on the steering wheel.
When you were chairman of the National Transportation Safety Board, had a conversation with Elon Musk about his autonomous vehicles. Can you recount the phone call you had with him?
Yeah, absolutely. I called Elon on a Friday. I think it was Friday, August the 6th of whatever year it was, 2019. I called him because Tesla was a party to our investigation. The NTSB uses parties to help them develop or get factual information. Nobody knows how a Tesla operates better than the Tesla engineers. So they were a party to the investigation, but one of the restrictions of being a party member is that you cannot be talking in the press about an investigation. which we noticed that Elon Musk himself was getting pretty close to the edges. And so I called him on that Friday afternoon to say, hey, Elon, look, we want you to be a party to our investigation, but you can't be speaking to the press. You're about the investigation. You talk to me about anything you want to, but just don't be saying, here's what we think the cause of the accident was. He agreed to that. And on Wednesday, actually on Tuesday of the following week, he was then saying that Tesla had received crash data from the system, from the automated system, that this particular crash was caused by the driver, by the operator of the vehicle. That clearly violated our rules, and it clearly went against the conversation that he and I had the previous Friday. So I called him on Wednesday to remove Tesla, to kick Tesla off of our investigation. And it was a contentious call. He argued, he threatened to sue the NTSB, probably even threatened to sue me personally, whatever. And he said, I want to do whatever it takes that we don't get removed. And this is a 28-minute conversation of going back and forth and him arguing with us. And when he said, I want to do whatever we can to prevent being kicked off of the investigation, I said, well, sorry, but we're past that point. Tesla has been removed from the investigation. And the phone went dead. He basically hung up on me.
Not something that's happened to you during your chairmanship of the NTSB before?
That's correct. I've never been hung up by anybody, by anybody. And so I think that shows the arrogance that Tesla has about their automated system.
But he'll say that there are 40,000 traffic lives that are lost, traffic accident lost lives per year, that autonomy is going to save tens and thousands of lives every year.
It will, but we're not there yet. And Tesla's approach to it is that we can do whatever we want to do, and we can make people think this is a fully autonomous vehicle when it's not.
Why don't we talk about this a little bit generally for the audience? These are driver assistance systems that are being added one at a time. We started with automatic braking, or actually even simpler braking systems. Now we have crash avoidance, and it's an add-on to these systems. And at some point, you get to the point where the car might be able to drive itself, take care of itself, full autonomy, as you said, which would be well, you could do some level 4, level 5, which is a whole nother explanation of what those actually mean. But we're far from that.
We're definitely far from it. Now, again, I think the utopia would be that we are everything, all the automobiles, trucks, surface vehicles are autonomous. When you know that we have roughly 40,000 deaths each year on our nation's roadways. A third, about 15,000 of those are related to impaired driving, whether it's drug impaired driving or alcohol impaired driving. And so you could eliminate those right off the bat. We have a lot of distraction related crashes, so we could eliminate those. So I think that ultimately, yes, full autonomous vehicles, that will save lives. But until then, it's the wild, wild west.
And how do we get to the wild, wild west? Each of these companies wanting to be the first to do it and to have robo-taxis and have their own fleet. I mean, what's happened?
Well, I think those who are developing these vehicles will tell you that we're going to lose lives in the process because that's part of learning. Well, that in itself is an unacceptable answer. We should not have people out driving cars and having other road users being the guinea pigs to see how well the system will operate. whether it's the people that are supposedly operating the vehicle or those sharing the roads with them. If you have a vehicle that runs over people on the sidewalk because the system isn't working as intended, that's not an acceptable answer. We're going to have to learn to develop these systems without decreasing safety in the short term.
Give me your estimation as to when we might see a fully autonomous vehicle on the road, whether it's in a city or on the highways. I talked to he's now the head of Volkswagen of America. I think this is 7 or 8 years ago, and he said it was going to be 15 years ago, and everybody else was talking like they were carnival barkers. What's your estimate as to when we see actual autonomous vehicles?
Well, I think we will see autonomous vehicles, and I don't even have a time frame, but we will begin to see them. But how long before we are fully autonomous? I have no clue. I don't think it will be in my lifetime, and I'm 67 years old at this point. So I think that, yeah, I do think that full autonomy is the way to go. I think that developing those vehicles and trying to get there is commendable, but the way that it's being introduced, we have to slow down a little bit and take a more deliberate approach. Because right now, people are dying because of the misuse of these systems.
Robert Sumwalt, former NTSB chair, now at Embry-Riddle University. Thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate it.
David, it's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much.
Despite the setbacks for the autonomous vehicle industry, research and development does continue, with success probably still several years away. I'm David Curley. That's Full Throttle.